Good morning again, everybody. Welcome to City Hall, welcome to Council Chambers, and welcome to a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for today, Tuesday, July 5th, 2005. The City Council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Meetings are open to the public, and we do invite you to join us. For members of the public unable to attend council meetings, we can be viewed live on your cable station, Channel 35. We can also be viewed live via webcast from the city's homepage or heard via council phone. Colleagues, the time is now nearly 10:20 a.m. and we have 9 members present, one shy of a quorum. But this being the first meeting of the week, as is our custom, we do have both a salute to the flag and a moment of inspiration scheduled. I want to recognize our newest council member, Bill Rosendahl, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and introduce our guest for the moment of inspiration.
Thank you, Mr. President. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My colleagues, for coming Saturday to the inauguration at Venice Beach, it was within the celebration of the 100th anniversary of Venice, and I was most honored to have you there. In the beginning of the program, we were all inspired by a great poetess or poet from Venice that came in front of the program, and I would like to introduce her, Philomena Long, to be our inspiration this morning.
I would like to read this to welcome Bill Rosendahl on behalf of Venice and Beyond Baroque. 100 years ago, this very day, July 2nd, 1905, Venetians gathered to turn on 17,000 light bulbs illuminating Venice of America. That light is now being passed to another century. We here today are a result of those first Venetians as we gather to witness Bill Rosendahl take his oath of office as our councilman. His intention to both preserve and nurture that luminosity. Raised in Venice, the very place he will take the oath, he is deeply connected to the land. I try to live close to the earth, he says, and my religion is simple. Love thy neighbor. Of him, it is said, he listens. And this is true. A chicken will lay green eggs for him. This is both an unexplainable magic and a practical explanation. But the real question is if he can nurture a chicken to the point where she will lay a green egg for him. What else can he do? Today, July 2nd, 2005, just before noon, in the full force of our Southern California sun, before the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by those whom he calls neighbor. As Bill Rosendahl speaks his oath of office, we, with him, will be those voices who illuminated Venice 100 years ago, and with them, our voices joining in the full force of that original intention to preserve and protect the body and soul of Venice. Venice, city conceived in imagination for imagination, with body intact, the canals, the welcoming houses, the people came. It happened, the magic, unexplainable. Venice becoming the city imagined, a city like no other city on earth. Its community of Venetians giving her a soul, bright, translucent, the soul of Venice, a gift which cannot be bought nor stolen. This is the gift outright, freely given to those open to receive it, for those who listen. But Venice, transcendent, still needs a body. It can, has been, wounded. It can die, live on only in history. So we here today, as with previous Venetians, welcome all as neighbor, loving freely, at the same time preserve and protect our radiant city with magic and practicability, and with the hope of a pale green egg. That resolve passed on from those who have gone before us, for them as for ourselves, and for those that will follow, will stand here where we stand today, and who will, upon our footsteps, walk into the next century, that the light of Venice not be extinguished, nor diminished, nor simply be maintained, but that light burn, burn, burn into a boundless luminosity.
Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, at this time, please call the roll.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Hahn, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Stein, Padilla, 12 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The council is now officially in session. First order of business, please.
Approval of the minute.
Mr. Smith moves, Ms. Perry seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Garcetti moves, and Mr. Cardenas seconds.
Mr. President, on the regular agenda, there are some items that have been requested to be continued for 60 days, and those items are items 6, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, and 22, and the new date would be September 6th.
Colleagues, any objection to continuing these items? Seeing none, so ordered. Next items, please.
On the regular agenda, item notice for public hearing. Item number 1 is a finding of public convenience or necessity in Council District 9, and the recommendation is to deny the request.
Okay, colleagues, item number 1 now before us, and I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council. Public hearing is open and closed. Ms. Perry, on item number 1. Do we have a motion on item number 1?
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry, Mr. President. You were asking me, I'm asking that I receive support on this. This is an area of high overconcentration of sale of wine and beer, high crime area. There is no support to encourage the sale of alcohol in this area for off-site consumption. And so I would ask you to, or ask my colleagues to support me in the denial.
Okay. Anything further on this item? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay. Next item, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held, items 2 through 19. On number 19, that matter is submitted without recommendation and a motion is required.
Okay. Members, items 2 through 19 now before us. Public hearings on these items have been held in committee. A motion from the floor would be required to reopen the public hearings. Mr. Rosendahl?
I just want to call item 3 special.
Item 3, call special by Mr. Rosendahl. Ms. Hahn?
11.
11, call special by Ms. Hahn. Ms. Gruel?
I think you were going to call these special, or maybe I know Jack is standing up too. Item 4, 5, and
13 and
13
14.
and 14.
And we'll consider those concurrently.
Great.
Mr. Cardenas?
Item 11 was just called special. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Weiss.
On item 7, there's no need to call it special. I would just suggest an amendment that we remove position C, which is in the matter that was sent forward from the committee. Mr. Labange is in concurrence with that, I've been told by staff. So
Okay.
we can do it
There's
special
no-
or...
If
but
there's no
that's what
objection, we'll
that's what
consider item 7 as just amended. Mr. Parks. 12, called special by Mr. Parks. Any other specials? Seeing none, on the balance of the items, items 2 through 18 and item 7 as amended, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Colleagues, item 19 is still on the desk. We do need a motion on that. There's no motion ready as of yet. We'll hold it on the desk. Madam Clerk, next items, please.
Next, items 20 through 64 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay. Items 20, 21, and 22 have been continued. We do have cards on 57 and 61. We'll call those special to hear from members of the public on the balance of the items. I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council. Public hearings are open and closed. Mr. Cardenas.
To receive and file item 61.
Okay. Is there any objection to receiving and filing item 61? If not, then let's open the roll and close the roll on that motion. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, item 61 is received and filed, and I know many members of the public have submitted cards on that item. That item is no longer before us. Mr. Rosendahl.
Mr. President, I'd like to call item 33 special.
33, call special by Mr. Rosendahl. Ms. Hahn?
What?
Any other specials?
Oh, no.
Mr. Parks?
I have an amending motion for number 40 that's being circulated.
President, yeah.
Okay, is that technical in nature?
Pardon?
Madam Clerk, is it technical in nature?
It's just been distributed, and it's just requesting the city attorney to hold vacant one exempt assistant city attorney position for fiscal year 2005-2006 in
Okay.
order to fund the personal services contract.
Okay, then we'll consider item 40 as amended without objection. Any other specials? Mr. Reyes.
Yes, item number 58, please.
58, call special by Mr. Reyes. Any other specials, colleagues? Seeing none, on the balance of the items and on item 40 as amended, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those items are approved. Next item, please.
Mr. President, this is the time for comments from the public on items not on council's agenda.
Okay, an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on matters within our jurisdiction but not appearing on
40
today's
and
agenda.
60 forthwith.
Which item?
40 and 60.
40 and 60 forthwith, please. Council calls forward at this time Philomene Long, Fred Dewey, and Melrose Larry Green. General public comment for today's meeting.
Thank you for allowing me to speak for a moment. I just want to speak again on behalf of Venice and the arts community in Venice to welcome our new city councilman. The cultural activity of the city is vital for our ability to get through all the things that we have to deal with. Witness Philomene's poem at the beginning. It's really wonderful to have Bill here. I know he's going to be a tremendous addition to the city council, and we're very, very happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Melrose Larry Green. We don't need, I won't take the whole 9 minutes, but it's really great to be here this morning. How can I, what a machaya. That's the only word I could use, the only Jewish word that comes to my mind. First of all, congratulations to Bill Rosendahl. I'm glad you're here on City Council. I did your TV show maybe 13 years ago when I was running for mayor in '92, I believe, and I came all the way out to Santa Monica, and you were very nice to me then, and you've been nice to me over the years, and I'm so thrilled you're here. I also want to say that Friday was a great day at the inauguration, and I was there. Let me tell you, I was a volunteer during the mayor's campaign, and I kind of filled in with the media, and this is pretty interesting what I did. There were a lot of angry media that got there late. There was just so much room on the podium. So I do speak a little bit español. Es evidente que hablo español también, Alex Padilla. So there were many angry reporters who got there too late, and there was no room. The fire marshals would have closed down, So I promised them all, the irate reporters, exclusive interviews with Alex Padilla in the next coming months. You like that?
Thank you very, very
Thank
much.
you. Isn't that, it's true. I really did that. And they were all happy, by the way. They were all happy. All the reporters went away happy. But it was a great day Friday. The reason why I'm here this morning is because I made no secret of the fact that, I supported Mayor Villaraigosa, but I want to use one word to all the people in the city of LA. That's volunteerism. I told the chief of staff this morning, I don't care if Mayor Villaraigosa doesn't give me a paid job. I don't get involved in causes for a paycheck. We all know my national politics, but this is a nonpartisan event in the city of LA. I want everybody out there that's a lawyer, that's a doctor, I made a list, that's a producer, a screenwriter, an administrator, a teacher, perhaps a politician, to consider volunteering 1 hour for the whole year. And I propose to Mayor Villaraigosa, Melrose Larry Green's plan for volunteerism. Won't cost the city 1 penny. And all I ask is for people out there in TV land who care about traffic, getting kids out of gangs, restoring the economy to this city, volunteer. This is the center of the entertainment community. We have thousands and thousands of professionals, men and women, who have expertise. And if they can devote 1 hour a year, you can email me at melrose1, that's the number 1, Melrose, MELROSC 1, at earthlink.net. I, this morning, on July 5th, 2005, am proposing a massive program of volunteers, because it's no secret the city doesn't have a whole lot of money, the state doesn't have a whole lot of money, and the federal government doesn't have a whole lot of money. But that won't keep kids out of gangs. That will not motivate us during the summer, and it's going to be a long, long, long summer if we don't all band together. So let's roll up our sleeves, get to work. Whether you like Bush or you like Arnold, I was so proud of Mayor Villaraigosa when he said, we're going to have civility today, when people booed Governor Schwarzenegger. Well, guess what? I asked all of us in the city of LA to have civility for the next 4 and 8 years. And once again, my name is Melrose Larry Green. You're going to see a lot of me, no matter what Mayor Villaraigosa's staff decides. If I am called to public duty, I will serve. By the way, until I found out that I'm not hired, I'm keeping my politics to myself, my national politics. But we must all work together, and now that we have this era of good feeling, I hope you will invite Governor Schwarzenegger and President Bush to this city council. I know I will be there to welcome them if nobody else will. Thank you very much. I'm Melrose Larry. We still have 5 minutes for anybody else in the public.
You said you weren't going to take it all, so I'm going to shut you
No,
down
I'm not.
right now.
I took only 4 minutes. My radio background serves me well. Thank you. By the way, don't worry about those interviews, okay? If you have too many, I'll take them, okay?
I'm sure you will.
Thank you.
This concludes general public comment for today's meeting. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 3 was called special by Council Member Rosendahl.
Mr. Rosendahl.
I don't know how to work this thing here. Thank you, Mr. President. I will vote in favor of this, but I wanted to make a few comments. I am against the LAX expansion consensus plan. That was one of the platforms I ran on, and I look forward to discussions with the mayor and how we move that to where it needs to go. Yes, I believe in proper modernization of LAX. And of course, the benefit programs make a lot of sense. But I would like to see Westchester and Playa del Rey considered in that program, since those two communities in my district are right next to the airport, and they have not been considered in that plan. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, then let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Colleagues, on the following items, 4, 5, 13, and 14 have been called special. I know Mayor Villaraigosa wants to address the council on these items, so if his staff can give him the 2-minute warning here, and let's take up one more item in the interim, maybe item number 12.
And that was called special by Council Member Parks.
Mr. Parks. item 12.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask staff to come up because I think there may have been a misrepresentation during committee, and I just want to clarify that issue as far as the number of spade and neuter incidents that will be required of this contract. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I think you were at the Public Safety Committee, and
Yes,
there was
sir.
a discussion of whether there was 4,500 versus 7,000, and I thought there was an understanding that the new contract was going to provide 7,000 specifically. Then we had information earlier that possibly it was less than 7,000. I just want to clarify that just so there's no misunderstanding as to this RFP.
Councilmember, you are correct. The new contract will provide a minimum of 7,000 spay and neuters associated with the the mobile van.
Oh, so that's guaranteed?
Well, yes,
I mean, it's
that's
a guaranteed minimum.
yes, that's the minimum provided by the Sam Simon Foundation. That's
And
correct.
that's what, on one van?
With one van.
Okay, and so the city could expect additional spade and neuter incidents by the use of our other vans?
I know there is some negotiation with that. Now, the contract will be using our van that we currently have. I know there's some negotiation with utilization of his other van to run in conjunction with this to provide 8 days of service.
Okay, and then is there some stipulation that if there's additional cost for these 7,000 surgeries that it's going to be absorbed by the winner of the RFP as opposed to the city?
That's correct.
Okay, and what would that estimate be?
Well, they have already submitted a budget of $694,000, which is $194,000 above what is provided by the city. So they are absorbing that cost initially, and then any surgeries provided over the $7,000 amount will be borne at cost to the foundation.
All right. Okay, for those who may not have attended that meeting, just to clarify, 7,000 surgeries by the contract, additional costs borne by those who won the contract, not by the city.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Questions, comments, colleagues, on item number 12? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, item number, do you wish to take up items 4, 5, and 13 and 14 now?
Yes. Without objection, colleagues, we'll consider these matters concurrently. Familiar face to these chambers to address the council on these items, Mayor Villaraigosa.
Good. I didn't bring him in, I promise. I do love him, however. First of all, it's a real pleasure to be back here so soon. I want to thank you all for providing me with the opportunity to speak and share my support for the ethics reform measures before you today. I recognize that many residents in Los Angeles view their local government with distrust and suspicion. These perceptions are founded in the recent series of indictments and investigations that have plagued City Hall. I am committed to making the changes necessary for local government to earn the public's trust back the first day of my administration, and I've been working to fulfill that goal. Among the first acts of my administration was the removal of all lobbyists from city commissions and boards, and thank you. And I'm pleased to announce an initial package of ethics reforms that I will be implementing today, including an executive directive and a mandatory ethics pledge. This pledge will be required from my entire staff and all city commissions to affirm their commitment to integrity and honesty. However, we have much work to do. I wanted to also speak to, except I don't think I have with me, the specific measures that are here before this body. And well, specifically, let me speak to item.
We're taking 4 of them together.
Yes.
I believe we have items number, maybe the clerk can tell us the 4 ethics-based items?
There are items
Yes.
4, 5, 13, and 14.
4, 5, 13, and 14.
Specifically, item 4, the prohibition of lobbying by city commissioners. I think that's a very important measure which I wanted to come here to support. We've read about certain commissioners lobbying other entities. This would prohibit those commissioners from lobbying any city official, and I think a very important measure and has my full support. The second is item number 5, which would amend sections of the Los Angeles Municipal Code regarding commissioner participation in contracting matters. That's very important. The idea that individuals would involve themselves in contracting matters, acting as staff in that regard, mixing the roles between commissioners and staff, I think makes no sense and is just an invitation for abuse, and I would support that measure as well. Item 13, requiring registration and a mandatory city ethics commission briefings for paid campaign consultants and fundraisers, I think is very essential. In these times when we have so many ethics regulations, it's important that those who are working in our campaigns and on our campaigns have the appropriate briefings that go beyond just your campaign manager, and so that provision also has my full support. And finally, establish a mandatory online filing requirement for lobbying registration and quarterly report statements. Makes a lot of sense, folks. While everybody else is not required to go online, certainly the opportunity to allow rather, and to ensure that lobbyists are putting their filing requirements online, I think is very important. So I wanted to add my voice to these proposals, which I think have been made by Councilmember Gruhl, Councilmember Padilla, Councilmember Labange, and others are very important. So unless you have any questions of me, I wanted to come by and say hello to everybody. And again, I look forward to working with you on these and others. These are the first. Today I will also be putting together a series of ethics commission directives, a series of executive directives focusing on ethics and the like for my employees that will go beyond what is currently required of our employees. I will be ensuring and announcing that all of our city commissioners will be doing the same. And then finally, I will be announcing an Office of Legal Counsel and a Chief Ethics Officer will be working in my office to ensure compliance in that regard. So thank you for allowing me to come, and look forward to a partnership on this issue of ethics and many other issues in the years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Villaraigosa. Our first speaker is Mr. Padilla. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I want to thank the mayor for his support of the items that are before us. This is a group of 4 items that have been introduced some time ago by various council members and have worked their way, as you all know the process, through the city attorney's office and then through the ethics commission, back through the city attorney's office to the rules committee for consideration on a couple of occasions, and finally now to this full council for consideration. But to simplify them and summarize them, item number 4 is the ordinance that would prohibit lobbying by city commissioners. And there's a nuance from when it was first proposed. Should we prohibit commissioners from being lobbyists, from lobbyists serving as city commissioners? According to the city attorney, the best way to implement the change that we're all seeking to implement is to go about it by the way that's proposed, to prohibit lobbying, compensated lobbying by city commissioners. Item number 5, amend sections of the municipal code regarding commissioner participation in contracting matters. Again, something that was brought to light over the last several months about goings-on at the airport, at the harbor, at the Department of Water and Power, and asking ourselves the question of what is the proper role, what are the proper limitations on activities by commissioners when it comes to the awarding of contracts, when it comes to the negotiation of contracts and their contents. Item 13 puts into place a registration and mandatory Ethics Commission briefings for paid consultants and fundraisers. For all of us who have been through campaigns, whether it's been some time or it's been recent, we all know that we as candidates have to undergo a mandatory training by the Ethics Commission. We know that our treasurers have to undergo a mandatory training by the Ethics Commission. But what is prudent from the practice that we've seen is for, number 1, our fundraisers, the people that we employ on the campaign side of things to help with fundraising, to also undergo that training so that they're well aware and briefed on the law. And also our campaign consultants, because of the role that they play in practice. Prudent for them to also undergo this mandatory training. This puts that into practice and makes it a requirement in the city of Los Angeles. And finally, item 14 establishes a mandatory online filing requirement for lobbying registration and quarterly report statements. It's something that lobbyists are already required to do, lobbyist employers, lobbyists, but this takes it a step further in requiring it to be done electronically so that it is more readily available to the general public electronically as well. The more eyes that are watching this activity, then I think the more accountability there is within the system. So these are the 4 great steps that I think we can take today, that I think we can take together, and I think sets a very good tone for the new administration and for this new session of the City Council.
Mr. President, and thank you all for allowing me to come here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Villaraigosa. Mr. Cardenas, our next speaker.
Thank you very much. I think it's wonderful to see the support that we have around this horseshoe for these badly needed reforms and long overdue reforms, and we have much more work to do as well on these issues. It's great to see that the mayor is here speaking publicly and making sure that everybody understands that that's what we all want in the city. So thank you very much, Mayor Villaraigosa, for your efforts and your support and your ongoing work on these very important issues. I wanted to stand and speak mainly on item number 5, and I want to go on the record and say that item number 4, great, good, long overdue. Item number 13, that's good too, long overdue. Item number 14 as well, that's wonderful, and that's long overdue. But item number 5, I want to call the question in our minds as we move these items forward, as I'm sure they are going to move forward, and remind ourselves the reason why we have commissioners is because they're citizen oversight commissions. They're not bureaucrats. They're not getting a check at the end of the day. They're not, well, not necessarily running for office in that platform. What they're there to do is to make sure that we have a check and balance. They are representing the citizens at the citizen level, not at the elected official level, not at the person who's getting a paycheck from the city of Los Angeles and benefits and feeding their family. These are people who are volunteering their time. So I think it's very important that we ask the question, with item number 5, are we going down a path if we continue to prohibit commissioners from being involved in the processes and then only being able to be involved at the very last step of saying yay or nay? Are we giving too much power to the bureaucrats and stripping them of these commissioners of the ability to understand what the heck they're voting on and understand maybe some of the nuances that will help them come and arrive at a proper solution? As I read this motion, it's pretty straightforward. My concern is that we be careful as we implement this into the future, that we be careful that we not tie the hands of the citizen oversight commissions too much. They need to be able to ask the bureaucrats questions in the process. They need to be able to call these questions. Remember, these commissioners may be having to vote on an item that's worth $2 million, $15 million, $100 million without having been able to interact with the bureaucrats in detail before they cast their vote, which is one step from being final. That's my concern. I'm for item number 5, but I think it's important that we ask this question, because at the beginning of when I spoke this morning, I said, and we're still not done, because we are going to do more and more reforms. So let's be careful, folks, that we make sure that this balance exists. These are citizen oversight commissions. We should not tie their hands to the point where the bureaucrats are running the ship without having checks and balances.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. Before calling on the next speaker, let me remind his colleagues that we do have staff present and available to answer any questions on any of these items. Our next speaker is Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and Chairperson of the Rules Committee, and getting these packages through the City Council. Today, I believe that we are going to have these items will make a big difference, holding not only appointees, but elected officials accountable on the issues of ethics and ethical standards. And I think it's a unique time in history, in our city's history, and a chance and a momentum for reform. I was pleased to author with my colleague, or previous colleague now, Cindy Misikowski, item number 5, which was regarding commissioners, as Mr. Cardenas just talked about, regarding participating in contracting matters. Let me make it very clear on the contracting matters. What we're saying is, of course, a commissioner has a role to play. They vote on the ultimate contract. What we're saying today is transparency and openness, and that not one single commissioner can influence that contracting process by sitting in on some of those negotiations, by sitting in on some of the items where they are discussing the competition in that RFP. It is critically important that we have a transparent process. We live by the Brown Act and how critical that is. The commissions need to similarly follow that rule. When you look at item number 4, which is prohibiting lobbying by commissioners, and you look at who introduced that, Mark Ridley Thomas and Councilmember Fewer in 1996. The time has come for us to adopt that motion that was introduced, that the commission, the Ethics Commission, has been working on, I know, for a long time. And I want to thank the Ethics Commission and their staff who have been working diligently and trying to address some of the unintended consequences that may happen, and trying to see where we can ensure that we have that transparency, open government, and ensure that the city can actually operate. So today, the other item that is before us, as Mr. Padilla mentioned, was making sure our paid campaign consultants and fundraisers go through training. Every single individual who is involved in our campaigns needs to understand what the rules are, that they will abide by their rules, and similarly that there are consequences to not being up at the standard of ethical reform and ethics in the city of Los Angeles. So today is common sense government, common sense reform. We need to do more, but this is a great first step. I think it was a year and a half ago, we banned commissioners from fundraising. Let's move forward and make sure that the people of Los Angeles can bring back the confidence they have in our elected officials and our commissioners to say, we have an ethical form of government. The city of Los Angeles is clean, and I think these reforms today will actually put us in that right direction. And I want to thank as well Mayor Villaraigosa for coming here, coming back to our city council, and it sends a very clear message in him working with our city council and trying to address issues of concerns, and particularly ethics. ethics. So I recommend, as my colleague President Padilla did, as well as Mr. Cardenas, that we adopt these motions unanimously today to send a very clear message that a momentum on ethics reform is here in the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank my colleagues who played such a strong role in drafting this, Ms. Gruhl, Ms. Misikowski, who's not here, Mr. Labange, who's not here today, Mr. Ridley Thomas, Mr. Fuhrer. I don't know, do I hear Art Snyder, anybody? Are we leaving anybody out from decade? Probably not. But I particularly want to thank you, Mr. President, for ensuring that this action is the first significant action that the new council is taking in its new term. That is important for so many levels, but it really is a great new day in LA City government when, thanks to you, the first action of the council is to push an important package of ethics reform. When the new mayor comes to the council to talk about ethics reform, and we all come together and support that, and when the new mayor issues directives to the entire city government regarding the mandate to act ethically and honestly. You put all those together, and it's a great new day in city government, and I want to thank you, Mr. President, for ensuring that this council is working in concert with those actions.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Our next speaker is Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was wondering if they had the staff here. I had just a couple of questions on item 4 and 5. I also want to thank the Rules Committee and the Audit Committee for getting this package out. The concern I have on number 5 is similar to what Mr. Cardenas commented on as relates to the limitation of the possibility of a commissioner, because I've seen in the past commissioners having insight on helping develop RFPs and a variety of things. Does this limit their ability of getting involved early on and getting RFPs done, or is it just in the sense of once the RFP is let?
Council members, Deputy City Attorney Renee Stottle. This ordinance basically requires the commissions to act as a body on contracting matters. They may be involved as a body in helping develop that RFP. What this would generally prohibit is individual commissioners talking to persons seeking contracts and so forth. It also permits the commission or board to create a subcommittee of at least 2 members, never a subcommittee of 1, to do certain types of activities as authorized by the full board.
Okay. So they have to act as a body, not as individuals. So
Yes.
It doesn't limit their input, merely makes them do it in a more formal way.
That's right, and in addition, commission members can always ask questions of staff in order to gain understanding as the matters come before their board or commission.
Okay. When we look at number 5 and you use the word contract, would that also identify contracts such as MOUs for employee contracts?
It would. This is a contract has been defined here, and it's a very broad definition. We've made sure to include certain things where there had been questions, such as whether permits, for example, the permits at the Harbor Department are contracts, and whether leases are really contracts, to make sure that those are included as well. But we've been very specific that they include all these things, but they're not limited to all these things. We mean all contracts.
Okay. I mean, but is MOUs listed specifically as one of those examples of what a contract is?
It's not used as a specific example, but it would fit within this general definition.
Just by definition?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing, and just going back to number 4, that I've had a concern about on a couple of issues. We asked a while back, I think in late 2003, on a motion that dealt with, I think, 3 major issues. One, addressing the issue of fundraising, commissioners lobbying, but the third one was a code of conduct. And I know we've gone through this before, and the dilemma I have is that we continually refer to the existing issues that are in place. Code of ethics for the city was drafted in '59. It hasn't been revised since '79. And we reference people to the fair political practice rules in the city ethics dealing with elected officials or employees. But yet, commissioners who are volunteers are still left out as it relates to a code of conduct. And I'm wondering whether we have to do another motion that we're going to ask you to relook at that, because it is something I think is a void as it relates to giving specific guidance to commissioners.
Councilmember Parks, you'll recall that the governmental ethics ordinance that was adopted in 1991 does in fact establish very specific requirements that apply to any city official, and that does include commissioners who file public disclosure statements of their financial interests as required by state law. Yeah. So there are a number of provisions that apply to city commissioners as well as general managers and elected officials that we and the city attorney's office work closely together to make sure that they're aware of those provisions.
See, but my concern is that we have employees that work every day, elected officials that go through campaigns and work every day, but yet commissioners may come once a month, they may come once every other week, they may come, it's first time their involvement in city life, and to have them be responsible for going through this voluminous amount of information to determine what affects them appears to be something that we're waiting for the next disaster. And we've had a number of issues where commissioners claim they were unaware that you couldn't represent people before commissions, even though you may have made a decision, that you couldn't be in those positions as a commissioner and represent people. So it still appears that it cries out for more clarity for people who are volunteers who may not have had any exposure to all these rules in the past. So it's just an area that I'm concerned with and we'll come back and deal with. The other one I wanted to ask you about on dealing with lobbying. My concern is we have a number of nonprofit associations that appear to spend a great deal of their life lobbying, but yet they're not registered lobbyists. And yet they do the same thing lobbying because they get paid by an organization. We had an instance recently in CRA where a member of the CRA board actually had her organization come in and, because she wasn't present at the meeting, actually gave her position on their stationery as what her belief was about an issue coming before the board. So there are nonprofits that we see that are doing the same thing as lobbyists but not labeled, and basically because of them not being labeled as lobbyists do not seem to be conforming to the same level of rules and regulations. And just want to know if you've had that experience or have a comment on that.
I think my only comment is that, again, we at the Ethics Commission are very concerned and interested in making sure that people who are subject to the range of ethics laws in the city or lobbying disclosure laws are aware of that and that they have all the information they need to comply. We, on the commissioner front, just to go back to that issue for a moment, are doing a number of regular sessions in the coming year to make sure that commissioners have access to that information and know that they can come to us and the city attorney for clarification on any issues. On the lobbying front, we make sure that whenever somebody does testify, we provide them with information about the lobbying law. And of course, if at the front end that information and our advice function doesn't work, we always have an enforcement function, and that's something that we take seriously, any allegation of violations of our laws.
Mr. President, I know I'm over, but let me just ask one more question. One of the issues that appears to be a conflict to me is that we have had in the past board members of unions sit on commissions that actually negotiate contracts and have the final say about those negotiations. Have we looked at that as being a conflict or how that might play as it relates to ethics?
I'll let the city attorney address that, but there are, within the lobbying ordinance itself, there are very limited exceptions for some types of representative organization activities, not all, and it does not exempt nonprofit organizations out of hand as well. So there are very limited exceptions in the law, but as to conflicts, I'll let the city attorney speak.
I'm aware that we have in the past reviewed conflict issues as to those types of issues, but it's all very fact specific depending on exactly what position they're in and what they're doing. So
My concern is-
it does raise conflict issues, but I can't give you a specific answer, always yes or always no.
Now, my concern is when you have a person that's representing a union that has the city's position, yet they're negotiating with a specific union about work rules and salary increases, that it would appear to me to be in some conflict if you have both interests at heart and information from both sides.
It does raise issues, but it may very well be the case that the law does not require a person to recuse on those situations or not participate in those.
Thank you.
Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I wanted to follow up on some of the issues that Mr. Parks raised, and the package of reforms we have before us today are very good, and we've made good progress, but I'm looking again at being even more inclusive or more far-reaching under scenarios where someone who would be a commissioner and is in fact a lobbyist but has chosen not to register, and I understand you say there is enforcement, and I just want to lay this out here for your consideration. I think that I'll be working with Mr. Parks and with the commission to see if we can't come out with some language or some very directed, very specific language or guideline, because unless you go and enforce, if a person chooses not to register as a lobbyist, even though they are a commissioner, that's where it will stay. And I understand that you need to take it on a case-by-case basis, but I still think that there's a gap here in the logic. And I want to share that with you publicly so that perhaps Mr. Parks and I can present a motion and then start working with you and getting some suggestions on how we might be able to close that gap.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. I wanted to applaud my colleagues and the mayor for coming down and speaking this very important issue. What comes to my mind is more of a bigger picture, colleagues, one in which we talk about who actually sits on the commission. And I'm not sure how to go about doing this. Maybe there's a motion, or we look at the issue of representation. When we deal with issues of planning, Department of Water and Power, Public Works, look at the commissioners, I ask myself how many of them live in the neighborhoods that I represent. When I look at South LA, East LA, Northeast LA, Central LA, and then I look who's in the commissions, I wonder how many folks from my district can afford to make their presence known or take the time off when commissioners meet to deal with the issues they deal with. So who's actually sitting on these commissions? That to me is a critical question, because we're talking about departments that have in the past made it punishment to work in certain neighborhoods. It's been my experience in the past where machinery was taken, brand new machinery for cleaning streets was taken out of my district, put into more affluent, and we got the older machines. Mentality being, well, it's dirty over there anyway, it's poor over there anyway, so who really cares?
Mr. Reyes, the city attorney's asked me to bring us back to the items that are before us.
Well, if the city attorney will give me a chance, I'll get there. The bottom line is, when we're talking about how we are looking at commissioners, their behavior, whether they lobby or not, the question for me is, as we look at commissioners, we also must talk about how we make commissions accessible. And therein lies who is on commissions and who isn't. How do you make these commission meetings accessible? And I'm hoping the mayor can see, and I know he does, that the notion of who represents these very important and powerful bodies defines how we use city resources that actually give people, where more than half of the many districts that are compose these areas are living at or below poverty. So will they have a chance? Do we give them time to become part of the system? That, I believe, is a bigger picture question, and I think we should be addressing it. And if we take as long as Fuhr did to start that, maybe in the next 2 terms, someone will take on this issue and actually set an ordinance form. But something I also like to work with you on creating that kind of language. Is that even conceivable to approach this issue dealing with this process?
can work with you, council member. We'd have to look at what, there may be charter limitations on what can and can't be done also.
Okay, well, we'll work on it. Thank you.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you for your work and for Mr. Villaraigosa coming in here today to make this a priority of his first day in office. It sends a very strong message. And I know there's been a number of folks around this horseshoe that have been working on ethics reform pretty steadily over the last collection of years. I have one technical suggestion or question, and then just another statement I'd like to give. On the training for the fundraisers and stuff, is there a receipt system that's a part of that? So that, you know, you actually have maybe some physical thing, and if not, can we do that so that there'd actually be something physically you'd get from the training that you could hold on to?
We have done that for candidates and treasurers, and we could certainly do that for consultants and fundraisers as well.
Great, that'd be wonderful. And this is a great step forward, colleagues, on a path that ultimately leads down the road that I know you've heard me like a broken record here talk about, which is ultimately a system that takes money out or gives the option of taking money out of our municipal campaigns, a clean money system, which I know Mr. Rosendahl is very passionate about. I know Ms. Gruhl and I have talked about. I'm sure many people around here. In fact, when you're in the thick of a campaign, it's rare you don't hear a candidate that says, wouldn't it be nice to be out there talking to the people instead of on this phone raising money? And we've seen it at the statewide level in Arizona. We've seen it in Maine now, judicial elections in North Carolina, and I know the Ethics Commission has looked at this as well. A way of moving forward so that we can take this path, this step, which moves us down that path towards potentially a full clean money system. And I think that this is a good intention towards that direction. Until we get there, we haven't made the ultimate reforms and truly cleaned up the system or given candidates the option to be truly clean. And what Mr. Reyes was talking about, allowing people in less affluent areas to have their check of $1 or $5 or whatever the threshold would be to count as much as a $500 check elsewhere. That really then equalizes the playing field, allows those of us who represent less affluent districts to go to people in our own district instead of outside of our district to raise that money to cross a threshold where you then get full public financing. It costs some money, but at a time that Arizona was run by Republicans, people voted to tax themselves, to assess themselves to do this because they felt so strongly and so passionately about it. I think Los Angeles can and should be the first city to lead that way. I know Portland is exploring going that direction, but we can and indeed should be the first city to go that way. So today is a step in that direction. I look forward to ultimately making it all the way down that path.
Mr. Rosendahl.
You know, in my initial briefing with the president of the council, I said I'm the new kid on the block and I'm going to keep my mouth shut, and I'm already standing up for the second time. LAX meant a lot to me, and this means an awful lot to me. My very first meeting was with the ethics staff on Friday at 1:30 to get the lay of the land. Perception becomes reality, even if it isn't the fact. I just went through a campaign where independent expenditures had more of an impact than anything else, and I hope we can review that notion. And at the midnight hour, hundreds of thousands of dollars were pumped into the politics that we really have nothing to say about. I appreciated all my colleagues' comments about some of the technical issues that obviously need to be worked out. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We want to get everything properly put forward. I'm honored to be here with the mayor making that comment as well. But I'm looking forward to my colleagues, Gruhl and Garcetti and I and others, I'm sure, working on the Clean Money campaign. It was one of my platforms that I ran on. When a door was slammed in my face by a citizen and said, oh, just another politician, I got to tell you, the perception of who we are out there is terrible. And to clean it up and to put the sunshine and the light in it is in the best interest of the democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Are the members of the council wishing to speak on these items? Seeing none, let's open the roll on items 4, 5, 13, and 14. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Let's send those items forthwith, please. Next items.
Item 11 was called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, what we have before us here now is a Commerce Committee report regarding the lease for AmeriGas at berth 120 at the Port of Los Angeles. A couple weeks ago, the Harbor Commission voted to terminate this lease at berth 120. They did that after, and I think there's a timeline that was passed around to you that you can just look at to get a sense of, it was really since about 1987 when the Port of Los Angeles said when the 30-year lease was up, they had no intention of renewing it. So for 30 years, we've sort of been moving in this direction to terminate the pipeline lease. It wasn't AmeriGas 30 years ago, it was Petrolane, but it was the same thing. These storage facility tanks that are located right in the heart of San Pedro, which contain butane, it was always the goal of the Harbor Commission and the Port of Los Angeles to change the use at berth 120. Quite amazingly, all three neighborhood councils in San Pedro supported the Harbor Commission terminating this lease. All the community activists, which many of them are down here today, supported the Harbor Commission in terminating the lease. I supported the Harbor Commission in terminating the lease. It was the first time we've all been on the same side with the port. It's a very rare thing to happen in San Pedro. And I appreciate the fact that earlier we received and filed a 245 to in some way have the Harbor Commission re-look at this idea of terminating the lease. Because, colleagues, what we really want to have happen in San Pedro is that those tanks which contain butane get relocated. Now, we can't force them to relocate. They're on private property. I think they have like 12 more years on their lease. But as you can see, those tanks are 260 feet to the Field of Dreams. See that square up there, which is a brand new soccer field, which if anything ever happened, it could become the Field of Nightmares. It's 2,000 feet from two neighborhood schools, and it's 1,200 feet from the nearest homes. Butane is a very flammable, see if I can make this happen. That's butane, folks. That's what's contained in those tanks. We would like them relocated. The first step was terminating the pipeline lease at the Port of Los Angeles. We feel like now they will be forced to come up with a solution. So what I would like to do on this committee report, if it's okay with everybody, is I'd like to bifurcate it and move the first part, which says we should have a task force that comes back with a solution. Because right now, they're going to truck this stuff. They're going to truck it, not through residential neighborhoods, but they're going to truck it, up Gaffey to Anaheim to the Harbor Freeway. And the only solution they have right now is to truck this stuff to the Gulf Coast. So we think that terminating the pipeline is going to force them to come up with a better solution. We want the Port of Los Angeles, we want AmeriGas, we want BP, we want Valero, we want the refineries, and we want the CLA and the CAO to form a task force to try to find a way to relocate those tanks out of San Pedro. There are many of us that think it ought to be on Pier 400 or it ought to be in an industrial part of the Port of Los Angeles. So what I'd like to do on that first part, let's extend it to 90 days. Because the committee report asked for 30 days for them to come back with a solution. They're never going to come back with a solution. Because let me remind you, it was my idea to postpone the Harbor Commission for a year. They wanted to terminate the lease a year ago. I said, let's give these guys an opportunity to come up with a solution. Guess what? No solution. Because they still had the pipeline. The pipeline was their lifeline. And we think terminating the lease will cause them to relocate those tanks. You're going to hear people today complain about the trucks. We don't want trucks in San Pedro. We don't want this stuff being trucked, which is my argument. That those tanks should not be in the community of San Pedro. They ought to be relocated. And I hope that by us holding them accountable, they really will find a way to relocate those tanks. They don't have to. But we're asking them, and we hope they hear from the public comment today, which I'm going to ask for an opening of the public hearing. I hope these guys hear. We don't want them in our neighborhood. They were there 30 years ago when this was like the bean fields. It was not a residential area. But our town has grown. We have schools, we have soccer fields, we have a community now, and we need them relocated and out of this town. I would like to move that we open a public hearing for 10 minutes. There's a lot of people that took the opportunity to come down here the day after the holiday to speak on this matter.
Okay. Mr. Cardenas, public hearing first, and then your comments.
If you don't mind, I'd like to make some comments because I'd like to ask Jan about her motion. I agree with her, but I just want to maybe ask to change one thing and make a couple comments. On the from 30 to 90 days, are you okay with 60 days? I'd like to push staff a little bit faster on this, if you don't mind.
I don't think they're going to have a solution in 60 days, so I'm afraid we're going to be back where we started. Let's give them 90 days. You know, that doesn't change the fact that the Harbor Commission has terminated the lease. That's over.
Yeah, I get that. But
So, you know, 90 days, if they couldn't come with a year, I'm happy to give them 90 days.
well, the reason why I say what we can do is we can have them come back in 60 days, and if what we can do is fine tune it and then give them another. You get what I'm saying? I'd rather.
Sure.
Look, I got through college, and sometimes I studied the night before. You know what I mean? So maybe we just kind of get them 60 days, get there, and then if we need another 30 days after that, we can fine tune it and then bring it to a closure, hopefully.
That's fine.
60? Thank you, Janice. Thank you. Mr. President, I'd just like to make a couple comments before we open it up to public comment. I agree with Janice, and if I understand correctly, basically on this motion, we're dropping paragraph 2, just dropping it because that's over with. The Harbor already voted, that is what it is, and just keep item number 1 instead of 30 days at 60 days to arrive at a final solution. And hopefully we can arrive at a final solution because as of right now, those tanks are still there. And as Janice pointed out, they're on private property. They have a 10 plus 12-year lease still there, so those tanks are going to still be there. Instead of piping them through to the port, as of right now, if they want to move some of that butane, they're going to be putting them into trucks that have 8,000 gallons per truck, many trucks going through there. We do need a final solution, not only for San Pedro and Wilmington and the entire surrounding community there, but we need a solution for all of Southern California. Because unfortunately, as we see on television every day, this country is way too dependent on certain fossil fuels coming from other parts of the world, and the refineries, actually, this butane is a byproduct of some of the refineries. And granted, some of the refineries are either fortunate or responsible enough, or however you want to couch it, able to have the tanks on their own land with the refineries so we don't have to deal with this issue outside of their own confined space. But here we do have it, and there are companies, big companies with refineries that are integral to the entire Southern California, and national issue of petroleum in this country, of refineries, and this is part of the solution, whether we like it or not. And one of the things that I'd like to point out, and putting it on the harbor, when they built Pier 400, if I'm stating correctly, Pier 400 was supposed to have some room for these kinds of tanks, Janice, when they built it. And apparently right now, they didn't leave enough room on Pier 400 for them to move such tanks away from the community. And also, another thing I'd like to point out that Janice pointed out in committee, and that is that when they actually used the lease that just got terminated, that actually interferes with the port traffic inside of the port, because these big butane tankers actually have to put off other traffic in the port. This is not what we're doing today with these tanks and the way in which they're pushing it through the port, and right now having to go through Houston, it appears. That is not a good thing for the immediate community and the community at large. So we do need a final solution. Hopefully we can find a final solution, and we're ready, willing, and able to engage our own CLA staff and with the CAO support to try to get to a final solution that actually satisfies the community, which ultimately means a solution where these tanks are relocated, and also that satisfies the entire community as well, which means that this refinery business and this butane issue gets resolved in a way that we should be doing it, not the way it is right now. It's too hodgepodge right now. It's not a real solution right now. It's just Band-Aid over what we ought to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's now turn to public comment. Without objection, we'll reopen the public hearing. If I can ask the clerk to put up a 10-minute clock. And what I'll do is I'll read the names of everybody who submitted a speaker card, and I'll ask you to form a line behind the podium. I'm not going to be too strict with the time here per speaker, but the 10-minute clock is firm, so the more time one speaker takes, the less time there will be for the people following you. So please be cognizant of that. Shirley Erlise Stark Wallace, Arthur Hernandez, Noel Park, Lucy Mejia, Skip Baldwin, Ken Melendez, Kathleen Woodfield, Chuck Hart, Bonnie Christensen, Jesse Marquez, David Rivera, and Mark Thomas. So if you can keep it to about a minute each, we'd really appreciate it.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I am Shirley Lee Stark Wallace, a citizen of the San Pedro community, and I'm here this morning to beg all parties concerned to please get together to establish a final solution so that those of us who work, live, drive the streets, attend the schools, churches, parks, and actually shop in the community of San Pedro will not have to be concerned about our safety because of the efforts of moving the butane that is being stored in our area now, maybe by trucks. Please consider us as you come up with the solution and realize that if you're going to be given 60 days or 90 days, that you please work with us in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Arthur Hernandez. I'm president of the Wilmington Senior Council, president of the Wilmington Property Owners Association, and newly elected council to Wilmington, the WNC. I'd just like to say that this is one of the biggest issues that come out of the harbor, and it's so important that we never even talked about safeguards. But the issue of AmeriGas in San Pedro is an environmental problem, and it also impacts Wilmington. I understand that the export of propane in this in the agenda it says propane, but it's not butane. Somehow, I want to ask a question on that. That it says propane, and we're talking about butane. And the issue, this AmeriGas, it's going to be transported by pipeline consideration, also train and truck, and that impacts Wilmington. We don't have very much room in Wilmington for these items. Well, we already have them in Wilmington. We have LNG, we have propane, we have butane, and we have LNG. But this is a problem that it'll impact our residential community, and I have to go against it. Also, later on, there'll probably be more issues as I looked in this agenda about pipelines. And these pipelines in Wilmington, we already have many pipelines in Wilmington. And this is, yeah, this is a problem, and I'd just like to say I'm against it. I'll give jurisdiction to Mrs. Hahn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
My name is Noel Park. I'm the president of the San Pedro and Peninsula Homeowners Coalition. I'm also an elected member of the Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council and a member of the Port Community Advisory Committee. And I would just say to you that all of these groups have done extensive due diligence and studied this issue, some of us for many years, and have all voted to support the port in terminating this lease. And the thing that's troubling about this whole thing is that I got this mailer, okay, on Saturday, put forward by AmeriGas's lobbyists, and it lists all these things about trucks. And if you look at this mailer, nowhere in this mailer do the words fire, blast, explosion, blast, overpressure, none of that's here. This is totally one-sided. The average person who sees this is going to say, oh, more trucks, oh my God, not realizing that this thing is extremely dangerous. We have this great uproar in Long Beach about liquid natural gas today. Well, to the best of our knowledge and belief, this thing is more dangerous than the liquid natural gas terminal, the problem being that it was built 35 years ago and nobody knew any better. I just want to quote to you from the Port Master Plan of 1979, and it says, In the long range, it is anticipated that Area 4 will be developed into a major container complex and that the existing petroleum storage tanks and berths, including the LPG berth 120 to 121, now AmeriGas, will be relocated to Area 9, Pier 400, as Mr. Cardenas has so correctly pointed out. The relocation of the LPG berth is considered highly important as the U.S. Coast Guard designates LPG as a, quote, cargo of particular hazard, unquote, COPH. This fact supports the critical need to develop Area 9 as a relative remote hazardous cargo site. And this is an exhibit with a letter that I think Councilman Hahn has distributed to each of you. Clearly don't have time to read it. Let alone, leaving aside the tanks on North Gaffey Street, which are on private property, the ships and the loading and unloading operations are also extremely dangerous. And we have asked the port to show us the radius of the blast overpressures and the incidents of fires and so on and so forth. And the port declines because they say we don't need to know, it's a security issue. So what do we know? So, there you go, guys.
Good morning, City Council. Thank you for letting me speak. I want to, what Janice Hahn recommends, I want her to recommend for Wilmington citizen, and I sit on the Neighborhood Council, and thank you, Janice Hahn, for listening to the people of Wilmington. Thank you, people. Thank you.
I'm Skip Baldwin of the Wilmington Citizens Committee, a homeowners group. I've also been appointed by the Los Angeles Board of Harbor Commissioners to the Port of Los Angeles Community Advisory Committee, and I have just been elected to a fourth term on Wilmington Neighborhood Council. I'm a bringer of good news. I'll only take a minute and a half of your time, but I'm going to cut that even shorter. I don't think the community is well served by this short time we've been allotted here, and the people have important things to tell you in consideration of the ramblings we've heard from other people earlier before the City Council. So I would just like to say this, that if you will please support our Janice Hahn, our representative, and if you'll please follow her, I think the community will be satisfied. Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Ken Melendez. Real quickly, I'm not a paid lobbyist, but I'm president of the Wilmington Business Improvement District as a volunteer. I'm not a paid public relations person, but I am a volunteer member of the Port Community Advisory Committee, and I'm not a paid consultant, but I am the chair of the Wilmington Waterfront Development Subcommittee as a volunteer. As a current 8-year resident of Harbor City and president of the Shadowbrook Estates Homeowners Association and former 20-year resident of Wilmington, I'm here to ask all of you to support our councilwoman, Board of Harbor Commissioners, LA Port staff, and the Port Community Advisory Committee in their decision to end the lease with AmeriGas for the safety of the dock workers, the community, and the port. Thank you. And got one other thing I want to bring up real quick. Wilmington Neighborhood Council did bring this up. I'm reading from their minutes, 4/28/2004, and the vote regarding this was 6 yes, 3 no, and 9 abstentions. So I don't consider that any kind of consensus. Thank you.
Good morning, council members. My name is Kathleen Woodfield. I'm Vice President of the San Pedro and Peninsula Homeowners Coalition, and I'm with the Port Community Advisory Committee. By current safety and regulatory standards, the storage facility would not be allowed to be built where it is currently located. I'm just going to be choppy here because I'm Xing out a lot of my testimony. There's currently no evacuation plan that serves the port communities, or this facility. The port's risk management plan is over 20 years old. It is pre-9/11 antiquated and does not take into consideration the vulnerabilities of AmeriGas and other facilities like it posed by terrorist attack. This facility poses a danger to the community. The AmeriGas lease was terminated more than 12 months ago, and AmeriGas was given a month-to-month extension to come up with a solution. But their solution was simply to hire lobbyists and alarm the public with partial and distorted truths. I got a pre-recorded message on my voicemail last weekend from AmeriGas saying, in part, if you want less truck traffic and train traffic, please call our website and sign our petition. So I imagine you'll be seeing a petition. The port offered 13 acres on Pier 400 as a relocation site for AmeriGas, but AmeriGas turned it down, saying they need 15 acres. So I don't know if they considered off-site parking, but this company has never participated with local communities in its entire existence, has spent several $100,000 with local lobbyists to preserve its corporate assets and thriving business. This business has no business being operated in the way that it has been. It has Coast Guard violations, lack of security on the facility, and poorly managed and maintained facilities for years. Unless the facility can be relocated in its entirety, it must be canceled and the company left to figure out its best options for the future. It is time to place the priority on the public safety that our people deserve. Thank you.
Okay. Your name, sir?
My name is Chuck Hart.
Okay, I'm going to ask that you're the last speaker. For those who are against the proposal, we do have one card from AmeriGas themselves, and I want to be fair and allow them an opportunity to be heard before our time runs out. Go ahead.
My name is Chuck Hart. I represent the Homeowners Association, San Pedro Peninsula Homeowners United, which is directly adjacent to the AmeriGas facility. For 30 years, we've been trying to get rid of this facility because of the danger it poses to our community. The pipeline lease in question connects the 24 million gallon AmeriGas tank farm on North Gaffey Street in San Pedro to a berthing facility at 120 in the Port of Los Angeles, with ships used to transfer this highly volatile material, LPG. That pipeline is like a fuse connecting two bombs, each of which has the potential of causing hundreds of millions of dollars in property damage and killing or injuring thousands of people. One bomb being a tanker ship capable of carrying 30 million gallons of LPG through our heavily populated community in the port, and the other being the 24 million gallon LPG tank facility operated by AmeriGas in our densely populated neighborhood. The port has wisely decided to discontinue this partnership with AmeriGas by not renewing the lease of the pipeline and docking facility, divesting themselves of the liability connected to AmeriGas operation as it currently exists. The port has offered AmeriGas the opportunity to move to the outer harbor, but it refused. What's the rush? This amount of LPG has a potential destruction power of an atomic bomb, a weapon of mass destruction in San Pedro's backyard. When LPG ships are on the move, the ports virtually shut down. Nothing happens, nothing moves. Much smaller containers have resulted in death and destruction miles from the scene of an occurrence. Government regulations and HUD guidelines won't allow any of their housing within 5 miles of an LPG facility this size. AmeriGas is considered a potential terrorist target by the LAPD, and as such, AmeriGas's safety records and data supporting them is not really relevant. It only takes one time, one mistake, one miscalculation, one act of God, or one nutcase to rewrite the record book, and then there is the unknown to deal with, which fortunately or unfortunately remain so until such a facility becomes a statistic. AmeriGas's operation and its current location does not meet today's federal regulations, and everything that can be done should be done to encourage AmeriGas to stop asking for more time and do something constructive rather than play the part of a victim.
Thank you very much. I'll read the names of Bonnie Christensen, Jesse Marquez, and David Rivera into the record, but at this time, will Mark Thomas please come
Could I
forward?
just ask, I mean, I feel like they've driven 26 miles down here, and you can't all speak 3 minutes, but could we give 5 more minutes so that the 3 of them who drove all the way down here can speak? They've been sitting here since 10 a.m.
Okay, I'm
Without
asking
objection,
please.
but members, community members, you can each speak 3 minutes.
All right, I am Bonnie Christensen, and on each of your desks, you'll find a letter and also a map of the pipelines at AmeriGas. I think one important thing is that the terminal where the ship dock is 500 feet from the 110 freeway and the Harbor Police Station, and less than a mile from or approximately a mile to our new North San Pedro Fire Station. Our first responders might be the first to die in an explosive accident. On 7/18/04, Mark Thomas of AmeriGas spoke at the Harbor Department, and he stated that the pipes were 10 feet deep at AmeriGas. I asked him later, I said, "Are you still using the pipes of Petrolane?" He said, "Yes." Attached to your letter are we worked on trying to get Petrolane out of there in 1970. 3 and 4 feet deep. They are not 10 feet deep if we are to believe Mark Thomas. Memorial Day, we got lucky this past Memorial Day. There was a derailment, John Gibson Boulevard of the tankers. 2 empty tankers were left on the rail, the filled tanker was off. We got lucky. Okay. And with the, as Janice so aptly showed, that's a minuscule amount of butane. We have 25 million gallons, plus there's some propane in the 4 bullet type tanks on there also, right next to a refinery. Thank you.
My name is Jesse Marquez. I'm Executive Director of the Coalition for a Safe Environment. We're headquartered in Wilmington, and we have members throughout 18 cities in the Harbor and Los Angeles community. I'm also a voting member on the Port Community Advisory Committee. I'm also a member of the Wilmington Citizens Committee, Wilmington Community Organization, and a former Wilmington Neighborhood Council member. I'm here to support Janice Hahn and her proposal. You're also looking at a living survivor of an oil refinery explosion back in the late 1960s when I was 16-year-old. Across the street from my home on Lomita Boulevard in Wilmington was Carson Fletcher Oil Refinery. The day they had an accident, over 300 of us got burned. I was burned, my 4 younger brothers and sisters, my mother, my father. To this very day, my grandmother has third-degree burn scars from her neck, down her shoulder, down her arm. So even though AmeriGas isn't specifically in Wilmington, we support our San Pedro community because we are neighbors. And when there's a major disaster, it doesn't stop at any border. It spreads. And because of the growing nature of the Port of Los Angeles, the community supported over 10 years ago the concept of Energy Island at Pier 400. And right now there is still pending a federal lawsuit investigation as to why Energy Island was changed and became Mayor's Terminal exclusively. So there would have been more property for AmeriGas to move to. But they have known since the beginning day that they signed their lease that their lease was going to expire. This is not new. So we ask you to support the community's concerns. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is David Rivera, and I am one of the residents who lives near the AmeriGas facility. And I'm also an active stakeholder with the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council. We feel that the AmeriGas facility is a danger to our neighborhood and the schools in that area, and we are against any proposal that's going to keep the facility there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as I said, to be fair, do want to allot some time for Mark Thomas from AmeriGas to speak.
My name is Mark Thomas. I'm the Director of Logistics for AmeriGas, and AmeriGas fully supports this recommendation, and we look forward to working with all those involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This once again concludes public comment for this item. Ms. Hahn, do you wish to speak again?
Well, thank you, and I appreciate members giving the extra time to members. One of the things we always hear is, you know, there's people who live in Los Angeles and find it difficult driving down here to City Hall, and yet the decisions we make down here that most impact their lives, sometimes they don't have the opportunity to weigh in on them, so I appreciate that. I don't know if there's any place farther, maybe Dennis's district, but San Pedro and Wilmington are 26 and 27 miles from downtown City Hall, so I appreciate this. And it looks like we have consensus from everyone. The lease has been terminated at Berth 120. And we feel like this will force AmeriGas and the refineries to come up with a solution. I appreciate our city staff now working on a recommendation, and it's clear Pier 400 was a bargain made with the community. If we allowed them to build land on water, when was the last time we took away water to build land? And they made a pact with the community. Well, I thought it was a sacred pact, that they would use that Pier 400 to relocate hazardous bulk material from community. They decided to go against their sacred pact. They leased it, almost all of it, to Maersk Shipping Company for a container storage facility. We think that that's a good opportunity, and maybe the port goes back and relooks at that and uses that land for what it was intended to, and that's the relocation of AmeriGas tanks. So thank you, members. I appreciate the support. This is an issue we have fought for a long time in San Pedro. It feels good, and Wilmington. It feels good to have you standing with me and with that part of the city of Los Angeles to come up with a solution that makes people feel, or makes people safe where they live, go to school, and play soccer.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you for the concluding remarks, Councilmember. You answered my questions in your remarks, so I'll stay quiet now. Thank you very much.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's about 35 miles from the West San Fernando Valley to City Hall, so and lots of traffic on the 101 freeway. I know you feel sorry for us out there. Longer by horse and quicker by motorcycle. Janice, I know that you're concerned for the community, and this Council of 15, we live, work in our neighborhoods. The last time I was down to your neck of the woods was, I think, the time we had a neighborhood council meeting. And I mentioned it was San Pedro, but it was Wilmington. And I know, and she spanked me for saying San Pedro, so I understand that. I know that the concern about what they want to do and the concern for the quality of life in the community and the neighborhood. The soccer fields that you have, the residents that you have, the fact that people come down here and express this concern. I know that we don't want to be anti-business, but at the same time, we have to be friendly to the residents and give you a sense of security and peace and tranquility. And we know that tragedies occur. In Greg Smith's area, where I used to live up in the Porter Ranch area, they have natural gas that's housed in the canyons up there, and they had an explosion one time. Fortunately, no one was injured, but around this city, we have those pockets where there are dangers, hazardous materials, and we have terrorism that we never have seen in our lifetime. So I understand what you're saying. I support you, and I recognize what you're trying to do for your community, and I respect you for what you're doing for your community. I'm sure your community respects that. I don't have the knowledge that she has in that area. I know when I asked for Janice's support on Amundsen to stop that development of 3,045 homes, she was there with me. Your brother, the mayor, was there with me, and the colleagues were there with me. So we need to do this thing in a proper fashion. When the community comes out and asks for our support, I'm going to support my colleague and support you folks. You've got a representative that's there fighting for you. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Other members of the council wishing to speak? If not, then let's open the roll on the motion before us. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 19 is on the desk, and that is a Personnel Committee report submitting recommendations of the Mayor and Human Relations Commission. Without recommendation, a motion is required.
And all we need here is a motion to move the report from the Personnel Committee. Mr. Zine moves. Ms. Perry? If there's nothing further on item 19, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes, 1 no.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, item number 33, was called special by Councilmember Rosendahl.
Mr. Rosendahl, item 33.
I'll figure out this mic soon enough. Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to speak on the item. As my colleagues know, this item has to do with the city establish a position of support in its 2005 and 2006 legislative program for an assembly bill. The late Mike Gordon put an assembly bill, a dear friend, and may he rest in peace, that takes Dockweiler Beach and provides that on a pilot program for dogs. And for full disclosure, my dog Rosie and Lulu shepherds would love to be able to be on the beach, and all animal lovers would feel the same way. As you might know, there's 175,000 dogs with licenses in our city, but there's actually 500,000 of them out there. So on behalf of the dog lovers, I'd like to see Dockweiler Beach go forward. The Senate committee has continued the bill, so it'll go back in for more consideration next year, and I'd like the council to support it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Other members wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 57, called special for card from the public.
Item 57 now before us, and the council calls forward Melrose Larry Green.
Good morning. I just wanted to recognize former Councilman Rudy Savornich here this morning, hanging out. You know, I'm sure when all of you are no longer here, you'd like to be recognized when you're returning. You know, it's kind of like going back to college. What a great meeting, by the way. Those of you watching on TV, don't tell me government's not exciting. I just come down here, shucks, the mayor, I got to sit this close to Mayor Villaraigosa, and the swearing in and the first Rosendahl today. Now let me tell you why I'm here, talking on number 57. Number 57 is about the open house at the LAPD Southwest Community Police Station, which I think is wonderful. LAPD needs to have the people in the population attending the open houses. Why? So you can understand that police are good. They're there not just to protect and serve, but to get your input. And we need more LAPD joining the force. And this is a great way for you young men and women out there that are looking for a career alternative. Go down to this open house. And speaking of the LAPD, I see the young man in Councilman Weiss's chair, and I can only presume that he's a young Weiss. Well, last night, I was over in Hollywood doing the thing. You know, when you're Melrose, Larry Green, you're like Paul Revere. And I'm running around the streets of Hollywood reporting people setting off fireworks illegally. And I go to my police station where Mayor Villaraigosa did a roll call Friday, and who's working the desk but young Zine? Young Zine is working the desk in Hollywood. So bringing it all back together, I said to young Zine, I'm going to tell your father that I saw you last night, but young Zine was manning the desk in Hollywood, and he sent out a couple of squad cars to investigate the 3 or 4 incidences of illegal fireworks in Hollywood. And let it be very clear, folks, that when all the TV cameras come to see Mayor Villaraigosa, that's great. But I wish that the members of the media would understand that the 15 around here are not chopped liver. And if I was ever president of the United States, each and every one of you would be worthy of being in my cabinet. So keep that in mind. But I do support item 57. Thank you. I'm Melrose Larry Green. Now I got to go about my business. See you.
This concludes public comment on item 57. Members of the council wishing to speak on item 57? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 58, called special by Councilmember Reyes, and I believe there is a card also on this item.
We do on item 58. Will Sylvia Lynn Hawkins please come forward?
Good morning. Councilman Alex Fonda, we must say no on 17 committee board in November the 8th. Again, can I have my 3 minutes, Councilman Fonda? Thank you. We must say no again on number 17 committee board on November the 8th for the Los Angeles River Project. All IRS policies and insurance companies have stolen all policy holders' accounts. Can hospitals inheritance insurance company, after filing Chapter 13 and going out of business, take all people's money whom owe them? I say no to anything to these companies, especially if they owe, or if they are owing the people, or if they are in jail and is now dead. Since the volcano in Tokyo area moved this Saturday, all money is now destroyed. All money didn't go back to these owners' bills that they owe to the public or their own bills. But all money was hidden in the Pacific Ocean,
Ma'am, if I can ask you to conclude, please.
volcano area. All money has been destroyed. There must be a new resolution with Congress for all bills of businesses, rent to be paid, and low prices for the public to be done immediately, voted upon, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This concludes public comment on item 58. It was called special by Mr. Reyes. And colleagues, as we did 2 years ago, I'll let Mr. Reyes take it from here. This is an item that would extend the life of the ad hoc committee on the Los Angeles River. And Mr. Reyes has a presentation to summarize their work thus far and where the committee is going on a forward basis.
Thank you, Council President. And first, I want to thank you for your leadership and supporting this effort. I do want to take this time to thank my colleagues, Councilman Eric Garcetti, our Vice Chair, Councilman Wendy Gruhl, our member, Councilman Tom LaBonge, and Councilman John Perry. They've all been very diligent in supporting this process. It's been a very exciting process. For the last 16 months, we have put together an array of talent, working with multi-jurisdictions to bring a focus and actually bring this revitalization of the river into reality. There are different areas I'll be covering. I'll be covering the progress under the sections of planning and studies, public education, management, resources, demonstration projects, and future steps. Our planning and studies efforts have generated quite a bit of substance. We've been able to select Tetra Tech, Civitas, and Wink to complete the river revitalization plan. The team's scheduled to begin work on August 1st and deliver a comprehensive plan within 2 years. Colleagues, what this means is that we will actually be changing the landscape not only of the city but of the region. We will be looking at this riverway in a multi-purpose point of view. Not only will it be a channel in which we capture our flood conditions and maintain our city safe, but we generate purposes that will stimulate new ordinances, that will establish new entitlements, that will create pockets and sections along the river that will celebrate open space, natural habitats, in as much as it will strategically place different nodes of development for housing, commercial use. Again, the notion of a riverfront district begins to become realized. The city completed negotiations with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to work jointly on a river-wide feasibility study that will complement the city's revitalization plan. Without the Army Corps of Engineers, we would not have the accessibility to not only tap into federal resources, but they are the ones who manage a good section of the river, perhaps about half of it. They are the ones that are essentially already doing this kind of work throughout the country. When I flew with a three-star general in a helicopter over the river, he was pointing to me sections along the river that talked about what they were doing in sections in Denver, Colorado, in Florida, in New York, in Arizona. He was very excited. He has 5 years in his term, so I'm hoping that we can match and be lockstep in pushing forward the kind of environment that will also pull in the great work of the county with their county master plan, as well as the neighboring cities. Congressional reps have been tremendous. Lucille Roby-Allard, a member of the Appropriations Committee, has been able to bring forward the resources that we have been able to generate. I believe we're approximately about $10 million worth of resources that have already been brought into the city as a result of our work with the federal government. The city recently authorized the submittal of the Prop 50 applications for Chapter 8, culminating in interdepartmental and interagency collaborative reviewing various projects. We found ourselves in a place with the committees where we can start actually orchestrating amongst the departments so we can go in as one city. In the past, we've always put ourselves in a place where we supply so many applications, we compete with each other and we end up with very little. So we're trying a real hard effort to coordinate. The efforts of District 13, Councilman Garcetti's office, City Planning Department, the Silver Lake Plan has been amended and now designates certain zones, land uses, and conditions along the river for open space, river frontage, and access. This amendment can serve as a template for the realization plan land use component. Moving forward, our public education, we've been able to establish a website. Last year, we've had over 35,000 hits, should I say, in 2004. We have done 5 community design workshops illustrating the different reaches of the river. We've had these workshops that are identified as great outbursts of design initiatives. We bring together community, we bring together professionals in the field of design and development and talk about how the riverfront can look, how it can change. The LA River Architectural Exhibit through SciArc and the City Hall Bridge Gallery gave us a peek at what could be. The annual LA River Day memorializes the past works, ensures future efforts, and increases public awareness of the river. 2005, the Future is Now LA River campaign and calendar with over 20 community partners and linking us together in an 8-minute video promoting the vision of LA River revitalization. These are all very real efforts that begin to change not only the river physically, but also change its reputation and actually make people aware that there is a real river in our city. In terms of management, we've been able to work with external entities. We've had a long time history working with the river. We have partnerships with local nonprofits, river advocates, the county, the state, and federal agencies, as have been mentioned. Internally, the ad hoc committee with Alley River Task Force, Gary Moore has done a tremendous job as a director of the public works facilities that we have, the department, together with planning. Our CAO's office has been tremendous, the mayor's office, in terms of providing an actual budget sheet in our budget so we can look at the river in the context of how we can continue supporting it. Resources, tremendous work from Councilmember Ms. Perry. She's been tremendous on the phone, twisting arms, getting people out there, raise the kinds of funds along with Eric. We've all done our share, but they have been, I believe, the champions in Propo. Both Eric and Jan have been pushing really hard and bringing this to reality. It gives us an array of resources that can actually bring real meat to the bones of this process. We've been facilitating Prop 50, Chapter 8, and upcoming Chapter 5 River Parkway funding. Again, how we posture ourselves. Councilman Perry has a tremendous project in her district. Natural habitat is actually being formed in the central part of the city. It is multiple purpose in that you have open space, but it's educational. It's providing people in the inner city the feel of open space, a feeling that I think many folks really take for granted. We are supported by the state and federal legislation for river funds, and we're partnering with other agencies to leverage funding for river projects. The demonstration projects, the CD District 2 Alley River Greenway, Councilman Gruhl has a great example of what could be. You actually have people walking along the river now under shade of trees, nice landscaping. There's a relationship there. There's a sense of openness in a very busy corridor, so I want to thank her for leadership and making sure that comes to fruition. The District 13, again, has Elysian Valley Bikeway. That's underway. District 1, we have El Rio de Los Angeles State Park and the LA State Historic Park. This is the cornfield and the Taylor. We are actually in construction. You'll see 40 acres right now actually evolving, and it's going to be a great project once it's done. And I'll knock on wood by the end of next summer this summer. Over 28 projects, including bridges, bikeways, stormwater projects valued over $139 million are in the planning and design and construction stages. So the city family is working very hard to this end. In our next slide, you'll see the stretch of the river, how it covers the corridor that essentially is our spine that connects the watershed system of the region. And you can see the waterway we call the Alley River goes through a good section of the region. So again, bringing this back to life will change the whole landscape of our city. In the following slides, you'll see examples of what could be. This is section of the rivers that found in the valley. If you can move to the next slide, please. You can see through one of the renderings how it can change. You have a cement embankment that converts into steps. This is and you can see where people can actually use the area for leisure, bike paths, walkways, with pocket parks along it. Again, you don't compromise the flood control because of the way it's designed. The flood control component remains the same. If you move to the next slide, this is the North Water area, North Atwater, Councilman Labange's section. You can see to the change there that could be. We have a river connection where an industrial corridor actually becomes a riverway that serves multiple purposes in trying to capture the debris as well as create open space, generate oxygen, and again, talk about how we clean the waterways before it gets to the ocean. So these are very real projects that can come to fruition with more support. On these slides, you'll see the cornfield, an old rail yard as well, the Taylor yard. You can see how the juxtaposition, how the changes of a rail yard can actually be converted to giant green spots. Here we have a 40-acre park. Again, how we allow our earth to breathe, how we let the water percolate down to the aquifers, all becomes part of the ecosystem that generates a future that our grandchildren can appreciate. The next slide, you'll see a Confluence Park will have a fountain surrounded by green. Right now you find an empty asphalt lot that captures a lot of debris, but through the process of working with the community, workshops, we've come together with designs and a way to cause relief. In the next slides, you'll see what everyone sees, an open trench lined with cement with water running through it. In the next slide, you can see how we can convert it. We can actually create greenscape, step the walls back, create pockets along the river that the massing you see there could be housing, could be a commercial corridor, it could be services, could be schools, it could be hospitals, it could be clinics, especially if you site them in areas that are highly dense, 40 to 50,000 people per square mile. These are the strategies we can implement to cause relief from these very dense areas. So again, we have that type of opportunity before us. Our next steps is to essentially look at how we can oversee the revitalization planning and related studies for this committee. We want to make sure that we continue supporting the river project so that we meet our federal mandates, lowering our total maximum daily load levels, our contamination levels, provide leadership for new river developments and programs, coordinate with the planning department, with respective council offices, neighborhood councils, and the other entities that talk about how they can see their own backyard be converted into a front yard. We will continue coordinating with the state and federal government to stimulate funding. These are incredible opportunities. Looking at the new mayor who has come in, his track record, in his work in the state level in acquiring funds to actually capture some of these rail yards to be converted to parks. Back as a Speaker of the Assembly, we are in a very fortunate place to continue that momentum with your support. In conclusion, I just want to say to you, in the age of term limits, I know many of us will probably think, why should I do this? I won't be there for the ribbon cutting. At least that's what people keep telling me. I don't believe so. I think this council has demonstrated a track record of looking at the bigger picture. Your investment in this process has been truly appreciated. It will see the results in how we can look at these greenways in coming years. We hope to institutionalize this effort so it doesn't become a political whim, but an actual body that is able to generate the the restaging of the river corridor so we can create a riverfront district and change the landscape, the face of this great city we call Los Angeles. With that, I want to thank you again for all your support. This has not been one individual doing this, it's been a team of people. The stage is big enough for everybody. I'd like to continue welcoming all those who want to participate and hope that in the future we'll have some real groundbreakings that shows how these efforts will realize themselves in changes in our own backyards. So again, thank you so much, Council President, for this time, and let's keep working together.
And if you want to hold on for a second there, we have council members who may have questions along the way. Councilmember Gruel?
The other side of the table. Grilled by Gruel.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla, and Mr. Reyes. You did an excellent job in outlining the accomplishments of the River Committee, and I wanted to just stand and say thank you to you with your leadership in making this going, making it moving forward, and I think you have demonstrated your passion and your dream. I was being interviewed by Channel 35 the other day, and the interviewer said, that Ed Reyes, he gets it. He's got a vision. He understands where the city needs to go. And so I wanted to stand up and say thank you. You've made not only some of the areas of my district a better place by your leadership on the river, but I think our work, as you've outlined, we still have a lot to do. And so I want to thank Mr. Padilla for continuing this ad hoc committee because I think it is critically important to the future. We are park poor in the city of Los Angeles, and you've done a tremendous job. So I look forward to another, at least a couple of years for our efforts to come to fruition and to really go to other levels of government as well and say we need some other seed money and help to make this a reality. I know the County of Los Angeles has worked very closely with my office access in parts of the river where they have access and funding, et cetera. So I'm just looking forward to another couple of years. Thank you very much for your leadership.
Thank you.
Mr. Cardenas.
Yeah, I just wanted to also echo what my colleague Wendy Gruhl just said about your efforts, Councilmember Reyes. Actually, what I'm seeing you do in the city is something that is certainly big picture and something that I saw us trying to do more on the state level, and I'm sure on the federal level they try to do this, because this project is big and it is visionary. But the one thing I want to bring it back to is we're the ones who get the phone calls from the local constituents. We're the ones who are reminded by our local constituents that we're park poor in some areas, that we don't have enough recreational facilities for our young people, for our older folks who want to take a walk, for families to get together and be together and do things together. And that's what I see this vision is all about. I mean, your staff passed out this poster, but I just want to remind all Angelinos that this poster, actually all of the wildlife here actually is in our river today. It just, the culmination of what this poster looks like right now isn't complete yet. And what I want to remind Angelinos as well about is that what you're going to have to do through this subcommittee, through this ad hoc committee, and through your leadership is to remind Angelinos that the federal government, the state government has money for these kinds of projects. And it's up to them to decide if they want to invest in Los Angeles. And we're doing our homework through you. We're doing our homework to make sure that we have the studies done, that we have the feasibilities done, that we can actually prove that if we build it, they will come. If we actually make this piece of concrete that everybody drives by and just looks at as unsightly, or can't we cover it, can't we bury it? No, this river's going to be here forever. It's part of our city, it's part of our Los Angeles. Now what our responsibility to do is to make sure that we can build it and create it to where it's a destination point, not only for Angelinos, but for other people to want to visit. I've actually been to San Antonio, and believe it or not, they have the Riverwalk, which is now the most frequented place in any part of that great city in this country. And I'm not saying that we're going to have a quaint little river walk that is that small. We have an opportunity to have various river walks in the city of Los Angeles. I want to ask you, Ed Reyes, if you could elaborate for the people watching, what kind of venues can we actually have? Do we have to narrow it down to just one? Or can we have various places in the valley, in the east side, on the south side, wherever this river goes? Can we have different places in which people can actually stroll, participate, and actually utilize this infrastructure?
Thank you for that question, Councilman Cardenas. If you put it in perspective, we have 33 miles of river, which means if you double that, you have 66 miles of riverfront. Now, a good section of that riverfront is already built out with residential use. I doubt we want to in any way penetrate those areas. But you have many miles of brownfield, in other words, industrial zones that are sitting fallow, that are sitting idle, that need this kind of intervention to bring it back to life. So how would it look? I really believe, Council President, as you stated, that we're the ones that get the calls on a daily basis on what's happening. It really is incumbent upon us to take on that role of saying to the consultants who will start in August, we will have, I believe, about 26 workshops, community meetings, the opportunity for each area to say, this is how I want our backyard to look. This is how I want to convert into our own front yard. So you want a commercial setting, it could work. If you want open space, natural habitats, it could work. The question becomes the fit. How does this use fit within a regional system, within the watershed? Because ultimately, we want to capture the trash before it gets to the ocean. Ultimately, we want to bring back the ecosystems that are killing our beaches. So it is a complicated answer, but to be direct, we have the ability to create a riverfront district that reflects the priorities of the area, as well as creates opportunities for generating revenue so that we can have the resources to continue cleaning our waterways and our beaches while addressing the quality of life of those areas that are, as you have so aptly described, don't have parks, don't have areas of recreation, and open space in many ways is an economic development engine. The question becomes how you design it, how you lay it out. I have a booklet of pictures where you see where the Cherry River meets the Platte River in Denver, Colorado. It took them 18 years, but they had rail yards and industrial zones that were just as challenging as ours. And if you see the booklet that my staff has, we can pass it to Councilman Perry and pass it on down, you'll see examples of how open space, amphitheaters, natural habitats, housing all emerge within a corridor. And you're right, each area has the capacity, and we are creating the vehicle by which you can define your own riverfront area.
Well, one of the things I want to remind Angelenos and all people of California, we have park bonds, we have water bonds where resources are still sitting in Sacramento. Those resources belong to Angelenos. They're being paid into those coffers by Angelenos, but all too often, they override our dreams and our ideals for our constituents right at home, and they say, no, what we ought to do is spend $60 million to save some redwoods, or several $100 million to save some redwoods, and or to maybe go to the Santa Monica Conservancy, and we should do that as well, and spend tens of millions of dollars without even thinking twice, and yet we only see them splash $500,000 in our local parks right here in our midst. We need to make sure that we remind our state legislators and also remind the taxpayers that yes, we should save those redwoods. Yes, we should provide for the Santa Monica Conservancy. But what's wrong with spending an equal amount of money right here in the middle of our communities where we'll have tens of thousands of people learning about the environment, respecting the environment, appreciating the environment, and getting to use it on a daily basis. I do not want to have to send our kids on a bus to go see these birds and these animals that are here in this poster. I'd rather that they be able to walk down from their home, from their apartment, from where they live, or from their school, and to be able to visit them right there in their backyard. That is the best thing that we could do for Angelenos, and that's why I support your leadership on this, Councilman Reyes, and we need to make this happen, and we can make this happen in our day. We don't have to wait 18 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Garcetti.
I know it's been a long morning, so I'll be brief. I just wanted to thank you, Ed. It's been amazing to be along the ride on the river with you, and just to have some stewardship over that area that still has that bottom. This morning I went out for a hike, and there's been a family of young hawks in Elysian Park the last few days. They've been making a lot of noise. I think some of the young ones are just learning to fly. And so the mother has been watching them as they fly, and rounding this corner that overlooks the LA River, saw them just dive down over Elysian Valley and towards the river, and it was a beautiful thing to see. So what you talk about of being able to, in our own city, not have to walk someplace to see that wildlife, to see those birds. It is right there, waiting just to be experienced. When I was doing some research for my swearing in, Mr. Rosendahl will like this statistic. In 1850, I think there was a big flood that changed the course of the Los Angeles River, so that now that it goes all the way down to the harbor, it used to go out of Ballona wetlands, which I never knew. I guess you probably did, but I never knew that fact. So it literally has been, you know, part of that changing landscape of Los Angeles. But now the clock is ticking. We got 4 years. We've gone from that dreaming stage to now the envisioning one, which is a little bit down from a dream, to hand off to those folks who will actually do a lot of the implementation. But kudos for being a dreamer, kudos for now being an envisioner, and I look forward to these next 4 years together. Congratulations.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you for your hard work.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ed, I know your passion for urban planning. When I see the fields as I travel north up to the police academy, what you've done with that and the river project, and I haven't gotten that much involved in it out in the hot West San Fernando Valley, but I took a recent trip up to Reno, Nevada. And downtown Reno, they have exactly what your vision is. And they had a festival right along the river where they had a number of activities, and immediately thought of you and how they have turned their flood control, their river, into an area of commerce, an area where people are enjoying. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's in downtown Reno, a beautiful place. Immediately you came to my mind because I know your passion to make this happen, and I know it will happen. No one ever had that vision to come around to have this type of activity. Years ago, they built the flood control, and that was it. I know Richard Katz a number of years ago came up with an idea to turn that into a freeway. He wanted to have a freeway when it wasn't raining. Then when it ran, I guess you'd take some other mode, maybe the boat down the LA River. But your vision to make this happen and to accommodate all the needs of the city, and to really turn it into a tourist destination. It's wasted space. And to turn that into what you have a vision, I saw that up in Reno. If you ever get a chance to view it, it's very, very impressive. So you got my support. I know you've got a number of projects taking place. And when I see the condominium prices in downtown Los Angeles, and they're building new ones at Sunset and Figueroa across from the great barbecue place that I think is going to be removed, as you can smell that barbecue as it's cooking in the morning as you travel down Sunset to work. That whole area has been totally revitalized along with a number of your areas. So congratulations, you got me on board.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you.
Ms. Perry.
Thanks, Mr. President, and I want to commend Ed for his tireless and unyielding advocacy on behalf of long-range vision. He has probably left many of his body parts all over this plan, and I would argue that he has put a cornerstone in for transforming this city for the better and for a long time to come. And I just wanted to say I look forward to working with you and reviewing the Prop 50 applications as chair of EQ and you as chair of this committee. I see every reason for us to continue to work together, and Prop 50 applications and the proposals that we're going to review together will give us an even greater chance to create substantive, concrete projects that hopefully can be built within the time we have been given.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Rosendahl.
I just want to say mazel tov to you because you were on the show a lot when I did that over there in the cable world, and it was a real thrill every time you came on. And then Pat Morrison, a great lady in this city, wrote the book Rio LA that gave a lot of other people an insight into this, what I call an artery of the cosmonic systems around us. And not only will you bring us people there to its shores, but all the wildlife that I'm enjoying so much in the Ballona wetlands will also just realize what beauty it is, and before you know it, we're going to have an ecosystem that is really fantastic. So God bless you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Other members wishing to speak? If not, then I too want to congratulate Chet. I know this has been a passion very near and dear to your heart for a long time, even before you were on the council. And I see you beam when you present it because it's something that you're passionate about, and now as a council member, you get to do something about. So
right.
Congratulations on the work. I know that there's still a lot that lays ahead to fully implement what you've dreamed, but thank you for pulling us together and leading the city in this direction.
Councilman, I'd be remiss if I did not thank the city family, all the departments. They've really stepped up. They've really gotten out of the routine and built a consensus process that is extraordinary. Thank Lupe Vela, Jill, and Wendy from my staff, who's been working with all the staff and all the council members. And again, by the time we leave, if we could have set the table with entitlements, new zones, the market will come, the advocates will continue to defend, and we will continue to represent, and we will change the face of the city.
Great. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, council has motions for posting and referral.
Motion shall be posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Weiss requests to be excused Wednesday, July 13th, to leave at 11:45. A motion is required, and that's for personal business.
Mr. Zine moves. Mr. Weiss is excused.
Councilmember Garcetti requests to be excused Friday, July 15th, to leave at 12:15 for city business. A motion is required.
Mr. Zine moves. Mr. Garcetti is excused.
And that clears the desk.
Okay, colleagues, do we have any announcements today? Announcements? If not, do we have adjourning motions today? Mr. Zine?
I know there were a number of events throughout the city yesterday, and I want to congratulate all the community members that came out to participate in the number of fireworks events, and also thank the police department, fire department for maintaining safety throughout the city. I know that the mayor made many rounds. I know he was out in CBS Studios, where Wendy was, Sunland Tahunga. I think he was in Pacific Palisades. He came to Warner Center, where we had a capacity crowd. We had to shut down Topanga Canyon Boulevard due to the capacity. So everyone enjoyed the 4th of July while little Christopher Zion, the officer, was working protecting Hollywood. Thank you, Melrose Larry. Thank you.
Other announcements, colleagues? Announcements? If not, do we have adjourning motions today? Please rise for adjourning motions. Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. It's with great sadness that we adjourn in memory of Alberta Nubla. Albert was born in the Philippines on January 5th, 1946, and immigrated to the United States in 1985, and passed away due to complications of cancer on Father's Day, Sunday, June 19th. He was 59 years old. Albert was married to his wife, Dee Dee, for 31 years, had 3 daughters, Abigail, Gladys, and Sigrid, and 1 son, Gene. He was very proud of his children. He was especially proud that all 4 of them were college graduates, fulfilling his dream of providing more opportunities for his children and family. Albert was a dedicated city employee who began his city service as an accountant at the Comptroller's office in October of 1994. He was promoted and served in the fire department, Office of Finance, Public Works, Comptroller's office again, and eventually became a senior auditor at the Los Angeles World Airports. His friends and family know him for his green thumb and love of music. He had a passion to share roses and songs with all. He was admired and respected by his friends, co-workers, and family. He will be terribly missed by all. He is survived, as mentioned, by his daughters, his wife Dee Dee, his daughters Abigail, Gladys, and Sigrid, and his son Gene. May he rest in peace.
Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask that we adjourn in memory of one of the music industry's giants, Luther Vandross, born in New York, 1951. He was the youngest of 4 children. His mother was a nurse. His father was a upholsterer, died of diabetes when Luther was merely 8 years old. He was influenced by a cross-section of African-American music styles, from gospel to classic to R&B. He's a songwriter, a producer. He basically defined contemporary soul singing with his wide vocal range and production acumen. He quickly became a pace-setter, paving the way for a generation of male singers of recent past. In 1974, he was a former musical workshop associate guitarist, Carlos Alomar, who became a David Bowie guitarist, asked Vandross to serve as a backup singer in 1974 on an album, Young Americans. Vandross toured with Bowie as a backup singer, and then later went to continue on his own albums with such hits as Never Too Much. In 1981, a solo album. He also debuted and reached the #1 spot in the R&B charts in the top 20. He made platinum and multi-platinum success through that decade with albums Forever, For Always, For Love, also Busybody, The Night I Fell in Love, and Give Me Reasons, and Any Love in 1988. But until 1989, he was registered his first top single, Here and Now. In 2001, he released a self-titled album labeled, where he won 4 Grammy Awards for Dance with My Father and Song of the Year. He passed away Friday, July 1st at John F. Kennedy Medical Center in New Jersey. He leaves a host of family and relatives, and also has a public hearing that will be scheduled for Friday, July 8th.
I'd like to second that.
All members. Ms. Perry.
Eric Garcetti and I, and anyone else who wants to join in, wanted to adjourn in memory of Gaylord Nelson, who was the former Democratic United States Senator from Wisconsin, who was the founder of Earth Day in 1970. He died this past Sunday at the age of 89, and he had also been the governor of Wisconsin. His long career in public service was marked by his genuine environmental spirit, and in 1995, he received the Presidential Honor of Freedom from President Clinton. He was recognized as the father of Earth Day, the grandfather of the Environmental Protection Act, the Clean Air Act, and the Safe Drinking Water Act. He founded Earth Day in the 1970s in response to a number of environmental tragedies like the Santa Barbara oil spill, the combustion of the oil-slicked Cuyahoga River in Ohio. Following Earth Day, legislation to protect the environment that had been on the back burner for years in Washington was approved by Congress and was signed into law by the executive branch, including major strengthening of clean air, clean water, forestry, coastal conservation, and land management policies. Within months of the first Earth Day, President Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency. So as the father of the founding father of the modern environmental community, he will be truly missed, but his legacy will live on for generations to come.
All members. Other tributes? Mr. Zine.
Monsignor Michael Joseph O'Connor passed away June 26th. Monsignor Michael Joseph O'Connor, visionary Irish priest, founded St. Mel's Parish half a century ago. St. Mel's Parish is in Woodland Hills on Ventura Boulevard. Monsignor O'Connor died at the age of 95. Was considered to be the oldest priest in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. He was born July 26, 1909 in Ireland, ordained to the priesthood in 1943, came to the United States and worked at several parishes as an associate pastor. Later served in World War II as a chaplain with the rank of lieutenant commander before becoming Monsignor in 1968. He was an avid sportsman who loved playing golf and kickball with the children. He never lost his great sense of humor. He'll be greatly missed by all who knew him, many family and friends, not only in the United States, but in Ireland. May Monsignor Michael Joseph O'Connor rest in peace.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Hi, I'm